And we're continuing on today with Chapter 4. I think we left off on Tuesday talking about tax-deferred retirement contributions. Can anybody refresh me what the major types of tax-deferred retirement contributions are? 401k, 403b, and simple. Those were the three. There's other kinds, but those are the three we were learning about. What are those tax exempt from? Which taxes? All taxes? When you put money into a 401k, are you exempt from all your taxes? No, just what? Just fit and SIP, just income tax. There's one thing that's exempt from FICA and FIT. What's that? The flex plan. And I think that was the last thing that we left off on, was doing a flex plan exhibit or example. Yeah, okay. So this is basically where we left off last time. Oops. What happened here? Sorry. I jumped way ahead. Let's see. Okay, so what we're going to practice today, slide 20, thank you. Okay, here we are. Okay, so what we're going to start learning today is how do I figure out how much federal income tax to take out of people's paychecks? With FICA, it's super straightforward, right? 6.2 up to 118,500, 1.45 on everything, unless you make more than 200 and you add on that 0.9%. So that's pretty straightforward. FIT depends on a lot of things. Depends upon if you're married or single. Depends upon how often you're paid. It depends upon how many allowances or exemptions you have, right? So there's a number of things that you have to look at. Well, as an employer, how do you know all those things? You know all those things because your employees complete a W-4, right? That's what your employees give to you when you hire them. And they're required to fill it out. The formal name of a W-4 is an employee withholding allowance certificate. And basically, you go through, you give it to the employee, and the employee fills it out, and they tell you, you've, I'm sure, all filled out W-4s. You tell them, name and social security number and address, and then you have to tell them, are you single or married? And you get one allowance for yourself and one for each dependent. Who's a dependent? Children and anybody else that qualifies according to the Internal Revenue Code is a dependent. So it could be your disabled cousin, it could be your grandma, it could be, it's not just children. Okay? So then also, so say it's just myself, I'm single, and I've got 2 kids. I should technically be writing down 3, but I fill out my W-4, and I've got some of these special allowances. This is a little bit past our scope, but on the back of a W-4, there's a big, long worksheet. And say that maybe I've got other things that I am going to be able to write off on my taxes, so I don't want as much withheld out of each paycheck. Those are called special allowances, and I use the back of the W-4 to calculate them. So you don't always write down the same number as you might think. Most people do. One for me, one for each of my kids. But there are situations where either you're going to have more allowances because you have special ones, or what if you want more money taken out of your paycheck? Then you put less allowances. Why would I want more money taken out of my paycheck? Yeah, maybe I'm using it as a forced savings plan. Is that a good idea? Is that a good idea to have the IRS take more money out and then you get a bigger chunk back at the end of the year?
Why wouldn't you just put it in
that's the whole point, is why would you let the IRS use your money for free, right? With that being said, a lot of people aren't disciplined enough to put their $82 a month, into their savings account and not touch it. So I do have clients that really do use that, like as a forced savings account. What else did I have to tell you about that? Oh, the other reason that I might choose like 0 when I really could claim 2 or 3 is if I have outside income. What am I talking about? What kind of outside income? What if I had like a rental that I made money on? Or I was self-employed on the side, and I don't really want to make quarterly estimates. So I just ask the University of Montana to take an extra $200 a month out of my paycheck, right? Then I don't have to worry about making quarterly estimates. So basically, here's what you got to do. You've got to choose single or married. Sometimes, or there's a box called married, but withhold at the higher single rate. That's the same reason that I was telling you before, is I want to increase the amount of income tax withheld so I can maybe get a bigger refund, or I'm going to use that to pay tax on some other source of income. But as I said, the IRS doesn't pay you any interest, so I don't know that I really think that it's a good idea to give them your money for free to use all year. So basically, here's a W-4, name, address, social. Here's the single, married, or married at a higher withholding rate. This is your total number of allowances. This person here has chose 4. This is if you want to ask them for a specific additional cash amount to hold out every month. And like I do that, I have them take like $200 extra a month, and then that pays the taxes on my little CPA business. So I don't have to worry about that. And then this last one says, I claim exemption from withholding. What does that mean? It really means like, don't take any federal income tax out of my paychecks. Well, who can do that? Only if you had no tax last year and you don't think you're going to have any tax this year. Probably for a lot of you as students, if you work really part-timey, you don't have any tax liability. So if they take out $386 all year from your check, you've got to pay someone to do your tax return to get your $386 back. You really didn't need to have had any withholding in the first place. So you would just say, I'm exempt. Okay, I didn't pay any tax last year and I don't expect to owe any this year. I only make $6,000. My standard deduction and my exemptions eat up any income that I have. Okay. When you complete a W-4, they're good for 1 year. Wait, what just happened there? If you, they're valid for 1 year, this is important down here, this note. Never, ever, ever, when you work in an office, tell an employee how many allowances you think they should claim. Why is that such a bad idea?
Because that's giving them like financial advice.
It's getting them tax advice. And unless you really know their whole entire tax picture. Like if you came in and you said, well, it's me and my 2 kids and my husband, and I'm like, oh, well, then take 3. But your husband's a neurologist and makes $500,000 a year. And you're making 20. You don't want 3 allowances. You want 0 allowances because your husband's in the puts you in the 39.6% bracket. Well, I don't have any way of knowing that as a payroll clerk. So you never want to advise somebody what to do because it taps into their whole tax picture. Okay, if you're an employee, you say to them, okay, here, welcome on board, fill out your I-9, fill out your W-4, and they don't give you a W-4 before the first payroll, then you've got to withhold at the very highest rate. It's single and 0. So that means they're going to get the most taken out of their paycheck. Can an employee change a W-4 whenever they want? Sure. And your employer's got only 30 days once you give it to your employer they've got to change it in the payroll system within 30 days. So say I have, twins, and I want to go from 1 to 3, I give them a new W-4, they can't put it in a stack and, do it in 6 months. I want it effective pretty much immediately. If for whatever reason I have a decrease in the number of allowances, like my kid turns 19 and doesn't go to college, or my ex-husband gets custody of our children or whatever, if I have a decrease in the number of allowances, I've got to change that within 10 days. This is basically telling us that we've got now an electronic W-4 system. So when you come to work for me, I can just say, log on to the intranet for my company, fill out your W-4 digitally. I can request that you do that. That's perfectly legal. But if the employee says, I'm computer illiterate or whatever, I have to provide them a paper option. So that's mandatory if the employee asks for it. And basically, what do you do with the W-4 once your employee fills it out? Yeah, you just keep it and you use it for payroll. People are always like, oh, you send it to the IRS. No, you don't. It's an internal document. The only time you submit a W-4 to the IRS is when they request one. And that's if somebody's chronically had under withholding, then they're suspect and say, you probably don't have 20 allowances, so they're going to ask you to send it. But I don't know that I've ever even seen that. Okay, what about other kinds of income? I don't know if it was in here or another class. If you get unemployment checks, do you want federal income tax withheld out of that? Sure you do, because that's taxable, isn't it? What about when you retire and you get a pension check? Is that taxable? It is, yeah, it's taxable for sure. So as a retired person, am I going to want a big tax bill at the end of the year? No. I'm going to fill out a W-4P, which is just basically a W-4 for pension income, so that my pension check comes with the tax taken out of it, just like when I got my paychecks, right? People have a tendency to think, oh, when you retire, you don't owe tax. Well, that's not true at all. It depends upon what your bracket is. But, you might have some Social Security that's taxable, your pension's taxable. Okay. And then the employer, so we need to all get out our books and flip to the back to appendix something. Appendix T. Appendix T. And basically this is where we're going to learn how to calculate FIT. And there's two sets of brackets, or two sets of tables back here. There's the wage bracket, and that starts on page T-5. So if you flip your book kind of landscape, you can look on page T-5. You use this table for what kind of people? Yeah, if they've marked single on their W-4, and they're paid weekly, right? Okay, on the next page, you're going to use it for people that are paid weekly and they're married. And then biweekly single. And biweekly married. And semi-monthly single. And semi-monthly married. No. These change when tax law changes, when brackets change, when Congress passes major tax revision law. So, yeah, the question was, are these the same? No, they're absolutely not. Sometimes they stay the same for a number of years, but oftentimes they don't. Okay, so these are really easy, and we'll practice using this. If you can use the wage bracket table, you always want to go there first. Really, the only reason that you don't use the wage bracket table is if you've got a really highly compensated person, or they're on some sort of weird pay scheme, like I'm paid twice a year, semi-annually, or I'm paid once a year, annually. I've never seen that. Really, the reason I ever go to the percentage method is because I've got somebody that's too high for the wage bracket. I can't pick it off of there because they make too much. If you have to go to the percentage of withholding, those charts start on page T-2. And those are on page T2 and T3. So if you want to circle on page T3, it says percentage method. Whenever I tell you to, or whenever you decide you have to go to the percentage method, these are the tables you'll use. And these are a little tougher to use, so you're never going to go there if you can just pick it off of the wage bracket. Okay, what do you need to know in order to calculate federal income tax? You've got to look at the W-4 and pick up single or married, right? And that's right on whatever that was, box 4 or 5. You've got to know how often they're paid, which obviously you're going to know that if you're processing payroll, whether it's semi-monthly or weekly or whatever. And then also from the W-4, you need to pick up the number of allowances. And once you have those three, well, okay, and obviously you need to know what you make. Once you pick up those numbers, then you can go to the tables. So let's try one. Let's say that I have a gal named Nani, which is Hawaiian for beautiful one, and her annual salary is $40,144. And she's paid biweekly, and her W-4 shows married with 4. What is her FIT withholding for one paycheck? So take a moment and see if you can figure that out. Figure out how much she's paid every paycheck. So she makes $15.44 per paycheck. What page number are we going to figure out? T-8. $15.44, 4 allowances. Did you guys get $60? Okay, what if her paycheck was $15.80? Which line would you go to? What if it was exactly $1,580 and she had 4 allowances? It's actually the second one, because up at the column top it says at least $15.80, but less than $1,600. So if it's exactly that number you want, you go to the one that says at least. But for the $15.44 and the 4 allowances, I got $60, right? Okay, excellent. John earns an annual salary of $84,400, and he's paid biweekly. His W-4 shows married with 1. What's his withholding? Anybody got a number? What's the problem?
Do it with the percentage.
Yeah, he's too highly compensated to pull off of the wage bracket, isn't he? So now we've got to go where? Yep, you've got to go to T2 and T3. Now, let's start. First off, before you can jump to the tables on page T3, you have to subtract the numbers from this page on the table of allowance values times the number of allowances. So on page T2, how much is one allowance worth if you're paid biweekly? Oh, shit. Okay. Well, yeah, you're going to have to share because otherwise you're not going to have a clue.
I know, but I'm like passing back and forth.
I'll just move my stuff.
I'm sorry, it's in such a giant folder. I just
No,
can't get over it.
No, that's okay, but you do need it the next couple of weeks for this very reason. Yeah, because otherwise you're not going to know what's going on, and this gets a little bit complicated. Oh, hi, thanks. You what? Oh, okay. Well, no, but then I've got my art stuff in there too, sorry. So subtract the number of withholding values from the gross, and then we'll go to the table. So the first thing is always when we go to these tables is we have to subtract the withholding allowances. And how did I know to use 153.80? Because there's a different number for each pay scheme, right? So it was biweekly, so I picked up 153.80. Also note that if John had 4 allowances, would I just subtract 153.80? No, I'd subtract 153.80 times 4. On page T-2 in the table of withholding allowances. Yeah. So that, if for some reason students miss this step, you can't go to the table till you subtract the withholding allowances.
I knew that's what it said after, and I was like, how do you get the withholding?
Yeah, that's page T-2. Okay. Now we're on page T-3. Tell me which table you think we're going to take our number to. To A or to B?
Oh, 2B.
To B. 2A is if you're single, 2B is if you're married. Okay, so I'm going to read this out loud, and then we're going to write the formula on the board. So our number is 3,092.35, right? 3,092.35. Where's my pen? So I'm trying to find the fifth on 3,092.35. So I'm reading from this, and it says, so my number is between 1,040 and 3,212, right? So does everybody agree that's the line we're on? Okay, so I'm just going to read this, and then I'm going to convert it to an algebraic statement, and I'm going to write it up on the smartboard. Okay, so it says if you're between those two numbers, the amount of income tax to withhold equals $70.90 plus, and then you need to open 2 sets of parentheses because we're multiplying a percentage by a difference. So it's $70.90 plus 15% of the excess over 1,040. excess of what? That 3,092.50. So I've got to take that number that I just calculated in the one before it, find the differential, multiply it times 15%, and then add it to the 7090. Yes, ma'am.
Is it 30 or is it 35?
30. I have 35.
Like the three,
I don't know. Let's go see.
I think it's
3092.35.
35.
Thank you. 3092.35. Yep. So let's take 3,092.35 minus 1,040. And just leave that in your calculator and multiply that by 15%. So this whole thing here gives me 307.85. Right? Plus $70.90.
I got like 307.90.
3092.35 minus 1,040
Oh, I was doing 0.6.
times 0.15. 307. Yeah, I got the same number again. Okay, 307.85 plus 70.9. So I think my FIT withholding equals 378.75. So now you know how to calculate the FIT. Some people it's going to be wage brackets, super easy. You're just going to go pick the number up. The higher income people, you're going to have to go to the percentage. Okay, let's try this one. This one, Maggie is high income. She's a pediatrician and she earns $336,000 a year. She's paid monthly. Her W-4 shows married with 2. What is her FIT withholding? Go ahead and please write out all the equations like we just practiced. So she makes $28,000 a month, right? What's the first thing you got to take out of there? Yep. And how much is each of her allowances worth? No, I think each of her allowances is worth $333.30, right?
Oh, yeah, I thought you meant
Times, yeah, 333.30 times 2, exactly. Oh, yeah, right, sorry, yes. So the 27,333.40 is the number you're taking to the chart, right? So the table I went to was married with 2, so I was on table 4B. And she was between 19,921 and 35,008. So I'm reading from table 4B on page T3. Tax equals $4,298.17 plus 33% of the excess over 19,921. The excess of what? The excess of the number you just calculated. So just pull that right down into the calculation. So this isn't hard, but there's just, a couple steps, and obviously you've got to do them, For whatever reason, students will miss this first step, and we practice it every time. You have to go there. The only time you're not going to subtract a number is if somebody's got 0 allowances. Okay, one more. So think about this one before you just jump in. I'm quoted a monthly salary, and I'm paid biweekly. What do you have to do? Don't say it out loud, but think about this for a sec. Paid monthly, or I'm quoted a monthly salary, and I'm paid biweekly. So you need to remember from chapter 2 how you're going to get to her regular biweekly gross. So basically, what do you have to do? Always annualize and then divide, right? Can't just divide by 2, because biweekly is 26 paychecks a year, huh? And then can I get that off the wage bracket? Yep. Did you get 131?
Yes, 131.
Okay, were you on the married or the single page? Yeah, there's a lot of numbers, probably, what might be beneficial for you, Bo, just with everything that's going on, is to get some sort of flat edge.
Yeah, I was thinking of that.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
All right, and then the last one. Did everybody finish that one? Sorry.
So was it just like your biweekly gross minus the 131? Well, I forget how.
So on the wage bracket, do you have to subtract anything?
I don't know.
Those are the easy ones. Those are the ones you just get the number and go pull it off of the table.
That's her fit is 131.
Yeah.
Okay, that was it. Yeah. So her net, I guess.
Oh, if you were doing her net, then certainly that would be one of the taxes that yep.
I just wasn't sure.
Let me throw you a curveball. Figure out this whole scenario, except for Belinda also puts in, elects to put $4,000 a year into her 401k. Same scenario, except for Belinda elects to put $4,000 a year into her 401k. Why don't you run her full paycheck for me? Same example. Then I want you to calculate her paycheck. How much is their 401k contribution? Yep. Got to take the 4,000 divided by how many checks? There's not really a lot of variation on how you get to that number.
I just, took it out of the annual. You know what I mean? Yeah.
Oh, well, you're going to come to the same number then. You're going to come to the same number. 36 minus 4 divided by 26 is going to be whatever these two numbers net out. But I would get in the habit of practicing each paycheck. Yeah. So you're going to pay FICA on what amount? What are you going to calculate FICA on? The gross. What are you going to calculate FIT on? You don't, because do you pay FIT on the on tax deferred contributions? No. So I ended up coming to a check of $1,017.84. Is that what you guys got? Because what number did I take to the tables? I just take the gross minus the 401k, and that's the number I took to the tables. But I pay FICA on the full amount, don't I? Okay, I got one thumbs up. Anybody else get this? Okay. Yeah, unfortunately, the thing with taxes is it's not a round. It's like golf. I got about a 7. No, you didn't. How many times did you touch the ball before it got in the hole? It's like, it's not an about sort of thing.
I got it and redid it, and I got it.
Okay, there you go. Well, that's why we just keep practicing these over and over. All right, let's go back and see what else we've got to do on the screen here. And then the last one is my buddy Furhart. He owns a bunch of gym franchises, and he pulls $485,000 a year out of his franchises. And he's paid semi-monthly. W-4 says married with 4. What's his FIT withholding? You're just doing fit, yep. So did everybody remember to subtract the 4 times 166.70? So here's the number you're taking to the tables, right? There's lots of details.
I thought semi and I put semi in, like, too.
Well, once you've done these a couple times, you'll remember the numbers too. Okay, we have one more sort of major topic to do today, and then I'll leave the other couple things until Thursday. So for Thursday, go ahead, please, and do the homework for Chapter 4. Yeah? Yep. The homework for Chapter 4 and practice payroll problem number 1 is due on Thursday. For those of you listening online, you don't do the practice payroll problems.
I must have missed that. It's on Moodle?
It is on Moodle. And Heather can help you. Haley. Jeez Louise, now I'm just making up H names.
That's fine.
Haley can tell you what we have to do. But it is on Moodle. Yep. Okay, next concept. Oh, so this is 535167. Okay, supplemental wages. We talked about these on Tuesday. What are they again? Severance pay, vacation pay, retro pay. These are all things that are called supplemental wages. And you have a couple different ways to withhold income tax on them. Say that I was let go and I was given a year's severance pay, a year's wages. So they come in with a check for $32,000. Right? How are they going to withhold FIT on that? Are you going to go to the tables? I mean, am I making that every month? No, it's my whole annual salary in one paycheck. Right? So there's really two ways you can do it, but I'll tell you what most companies do. is they run a flat, that's on the next screen. They run a flat 25% unless it's a really giant check, in which case they use 39.6, which is the highest bracket. And for state in Montana, the supplemental wage is 3%. Oh, why am I struggling with this today so much? Supplemental wages. Yeah. Okay, so here it's 25% for the feds and it's 3% for Montana. Those are flat rates. So I get a separate check for my vacation pay. I get a separate check for my retroactive pay. I get a separate check because I'm being terminated and I'm getting severance pay. Those all, you can just take flat amounts out of it. That's normally what you see. You can add the supplemental to your regular wages and go to the tables, but that's going to be quite skewed because you're not getting that same paycheck every time. So it's going to put you in a different bracket. Okay, so that's supplemental wages. The last thing we're going to talk about today is this idea of grossing up a check. This happens when you want to give somebody a bonus or a set amount of money, for example, to cover their car costs. So say that I'm going to come to work for your construction company, and I tell you, you want me. I tell you, I need $600 a month to cover my truck payment. I'm going to be using my truck to get to and from the job site. If you say I'm going to cut you a check for $600 a month, how much am I going to get of that? Roughly. 70 or 80%, depending on my tax bracket. Right? If you're going to take taxes from it. Is that going to cover my truck payment? Obviously not. I want $600. What's the problem for you as an employer if my goal is to get $600 a month take home extra? Can you just run $600 your payroll? No, it's got to be some amount greater than 600, doesn't it? How are you going to figure that amount out? Anybody have any ideas? Do you understand what I'm talking about first off? But an advance is I'm going to pay you back. And I'm never going to pay you back. I want $600 a month in addition to my negotiated salary. I want $600 a month in my pocket to take, put in pocket A and take out of pocket B and make my truck payment. No, because I want it every month. So what the dilemma is here is, are you starting with the gross or the net? You're starting with the net. I'm starting with this number, right? And I need to gross up and figure out what this number is. You see the dilemma? Normally we figure out the gross pay and we go down, right? Now we're starting with the net and we're going up. So the question is, how do we do that? So I'm negotiating in addition to my wage that I want and my, benefits and my whole package. You want me as a project engineer. I tell you, only if in addition to my salary you can get me $600 a month to make my truck payment. So I need to gross up and figure out what this number is, right? So everybody write that in your notes, because this is what we're trying to calculate. So in essence, I'm solving for X and the gross is X. Okay. We know what goes between gross and net. What goes between gross and net? OASDI, HI, net, and set. Go ahead and write the percentages by each of those, and then tally up what my total taxes are as a percentage. My total taxes equal what? And write them as decimals. Supplemental wage, so I'm just going to use that flat rate, right? My taxes are 35.65% of my check. Right? So what's left over for my net? What percentage is my net going to be? If my taxes are 35.65%, what's left for my net paycheck? %, minus my taxes leaves me 0.6435. Does everybody agree? Anybody have any idea now how I'm going to get up to my gross?
No,
Can't multiply.
figure out the difference in subtract. No. I don't know. I'm just.
No, that's okay. No, if you keep going through all the different mathematical operatives, you're going to hit on the right one. It's not a subtraction. It's not a multiplication. You're going to divide. Yay! What are you going to divide by what? By what? That's it. $600 is 64.35% of what number? And when you get that number, that is the gross. And then how do you prove that it's right? How can you prove the number? Yep. So I want you to run this check. So how much was the gross check? Yep, $932.40, right? So once you get that, you can multiply it out, right, and prove it. Does it work out to the penny, or do you have to adjust something? Great. Sometimes it doesn't, and then you just have to adjust on the penny. The last thing I'd like you to do with this is figure out how much I'm going to have to deposit every month for running this check. Oh wait, the OESDI is not, that's not right, is it? So how much is my 941 deposit? I got 375.76. FICA fit. Right, so FICA for one share is $70.33. Or $71.33 plus $71.33 plus $233.10. Yeah, that's what I got. Whew, lots of numbers.
Are you going to be posting this too?
Yes, I will, certainly. So this is grossing up supplemental wages. Why don't you try this one and then we'll call it a day. I've got a guy that wants $700. He does not live in a state with any income tax. And then also you have to always ask me that he can. He can't. So in this case, the taxes came up to 32.65. Right? So 1 minus 0.3265 means the net check was 60.6735, right? So really, I just took 600 divided by 0.6735. What did you get for the gross? 1039.35. Did you subtract the taxes? Did it come nice and neatly to 700? Great. Okay. For Thursday, homework for Chapter 4, practice payroll problem number 1. We'll wrap up Chapter 4 and move on to our CLGL next week. Okay? Good job. If you struggle with anything today, go back and rework the problems. And yeah, this should be posted by later this afternoon. You bet. Take care.